Yo, what is up guys? Coach Cole back here again with another video, and today I want to talk about the ban list and the inevitable March 16th madness, if you want to say, because Worlds is coming up this week. We got Cross, we got Clyde representing the US. We want them to bring it back home for us because, you know, we are excited to get on the map. I've been seeing a lot of speculation on Twitter and X and all that. I call it Twitter, X, whatever. And I'm super excited to just watch it this weekend. I think I'm gonna be up at 4 a.m. to see the ban list, see the finals and stuff. Hopefully Clyde and Cross are still in it by the time that we are able to see the stream. Unfortunately, it sounds like we can only see the round right before the finals, so the runner-up and then finals itself. But yeah, we're gonna talk about it. If you guys don't know, a ban list is expected to drop right after finals, kind of like it happened back in September when Law and Ennis Lobby got banned. They did it right after the finals, and then they gave us a big reveal and stuff. So I'm super excited to talk about it. Let's get into it. All right, so we gotta address the elephant in the room. Like I said, I went to OP Dallas, and the first card that I think is probably gonna get hit in some way is gonna be Dofi, right? The leader. And I don't think for the most part, right? I don't think for the most part that they are actually going to ban Dofi, the leader. I know a lot of people have been speculating and saying, hey, I think Dofi is way too good, way too important in this meta. And if Dofi continues into OP10, it's just going to keep on being a Dofi meta, right? And I agree to that to some extent. I don't think the leader itself should be hit. I personally don't think that. And the reason I say that is because of the fact that Dofi inherently is a great leader, but its support cards are what the problem is, right? So if you think about Dofi in itself, before the starter deck, ST17 I want to say, right? I think I have it here somewhere. Dofi wasn't that good. It was great because it got Jinbei and Weevil and all that combos, but what really pushed it over the edge was Law, Marshall D. Teach, and Boa, right? So I think in order to make Dofi balanced, and you don't want to hit the leader, so Bandai doesn't do this thing where they keep on banning leaders, I think you have to target its counterparts, which are going to be Marshall D. Teach and Law. So we'll talk about that. But my prediction is that Dofi, the leader, does not get touched, right? And whether you love that or hate that, that's just my opinion, that's my thought. So we'll move on. The card that I do think is going to be hit right away is going to be this Marshall D. Teach. The reason why this Marshall D. Teach needs to be hit is because, one, it allows Dofi to play an unfair game where they always have more than 10 Dawn on a teardown turn because you can always use Rusted Dawn, right? Blue should not be able to do that for the most part, especially when you're able to get a free body off the top of your deck in order to activate its effect, right? The cost is to place one card from the top of your hand to your life, so you're never missing leader effect. The effect is to give 2 Rested Dawn to one of your leaders or characters. So you can give this to your leader, or you can give it to your character to go aggro, right? And you're always swinging 7 with Dofi for the most part, unless you're trying to go for game. So Marshall D. Teach just opens way too many lines. And it just makes Dofi the best deck in the format, I think. Without Teach being abused, I think Dofi is still a really good deck, but I think it kind of does fall off because it'll have way more susceptibility to yellow. It won't be as aggressive, and I think Teach in it of itself is an inherently broken card within the Dofi leader, right? If you were to do anything to fix this, you either have to ban Dofi or you have to ban Teach, one or the other, right? But Teach probably is going to be the target because I think that it gives you way too many lines that Dofi didn't have access to prior to the starter deck. So I think that's going to be my vote. Coming up next on this list, Trafalgar Law. Now, I am personally a Trafalgar Law stan because I did play Trafalgar Law in OP7. And I really love any Trafalgar Law card, but I think inherently every Trafalgar Law card, because it's trying to adapt to the lore of what Trafalgar Law does in the anime, like Room and all that stuff, they become broken cards, right? And this Trafalgar Law is no different. You get to bounce it and a card on the side of on any side of the board. So you could bounce from your side of the board, searchers, you could bounce your Peronas in order to use them again for 1 Dawn. Or you can bounce itself when you don't have another out, and you essentially just return something to hand for 4 Dawn, right? especially with the combos with Marshall D Teach, you can use Trafalgar Law on 10 Don 3 times. You play 4, you Law, you bounce it back. You play Law again, you 4, you bounce it back. And then you can use Teach, right, to give your leader 2 rested Don, have 1 more Don available, right? Or at least 2 more Don available, right? So you swing 8 into lead, and then you get to bounce something again for the 3rd time, which is nuts. There should not be a card that allows you to do that combo loop, but it's there, right? So I think that Trafalgar Law will probably get restricted to 1, if I'm being completely honest. And the reason why I say 1 and not straight up banned is because of the fact that it is having a new alternate art in PRB2 that was confirmed by distributors back like a month ago. So I think Law is an inherently good card, and I don't think they want to ban it just yet because of profit for PRB02, but I do think it's going to go down to 1, and that will majorly hinder Dofi. I do not think Boa is a problem. I think it's a great card. I think it's a balance for the most part. It is a really good combo piece in Dofi, but I think inherently Law and Teach are the problems. So I could see Law going down to 1 and Teach getting banned if the Dofi leader doesn't. Next on this list, Gum Gum Giant. At the start of this set, I was a Ploofy player. I ended up being a Lucci player for Dallas, but I was a Ploofy player, and I recognize the inherent brokenness of this card, right? For counter, -2 Don, you trash a card from hand, so you can trash a brick from your hand, and then it inherently becomes a 2K counter. Any brick in your hand can inherently become a 2K counter, plus this card being a 2K counter, right? So if you think about it, 2 cards in hand, 4K counter for the cost of Gum Gum Giant. And then you gain 4,000 power, but that's not it. You also get to draw 2 cards, so you get to cycle through your deck. You're able to get rid of 2 bricks in your hand, right? And for -2 Dawn in Ploofy, especially, it literally doesn't matter, because if you're at 10 Dawn, you get your 2 Dawn right back right away. So it just becomes a souped up Rad Beam, and Rad Beam at one point, if you guys didn't know in this card game, was restricted. I think even banned. I'm not sure. I didn't play before OP5. I started in OP5, so I didn't know what that ban list looked like. But yeah, like, this card is inherently broken, and in Green Purple Luffy, which is coming out in EBO2, and in Blue Purple Luffy, which is coming out in OP11, this card literally just gets better, because you have 2 6,000 leaders almost inherently. Blue Purple Luffy is 6,000. Green Purple Luffy is 5,000, but with its leader effect becomes 6,000 for the turn. So I think that this card is probably gonna go. I don't think it's gonna go right now. I think it's gonna go after EBO2 into OP11, right? So I do think that we do still have one more format with Gum Gum Giant, but I wouldn't be surprised, I wouldn't be shocked if it does get future-proofed and they just ban it all right together, but I don't think so. So bear with me when I say that. I am also a Ploofy player, so I do have a little bit of bias, but I don't think Giant gets banned just yet. I think it'll get banned into OP11, okay? Oh, I have Giant twice. Next on this list is going to be Gecko Moria. Again, I'm a Rob Lucci player. Gecko Moria is the best card in the deck, hands down, without question. And I do think that this card has been a problem since release in OP6. In Gecko Moria and Rob Lucci and all these decks in Black Yellow Luffy, this card is literally the win con for most of your games, right? And because it's such a win con for all black decks, I think inherently there's a problem with black decks being super weak if we didn't have Gecko Moria, right? I do think that Gecko Moria needs to be touched. I don't know if they will touch it, but I do think it needs to be touched, because if you take out Gecko Moria from the equation, what do black decks do, right? They don't do much but reducing and all that stuff, right? But the insane combo that you have in Rob Lucci is Rebecca, Helmeppo, Spandy, Rob Lucci, you know, doing all that shebang, right? And then in any other deck like Black Yellow Luffy, you're able to Gecko Little Brothers out, get to cycle your life, you're able to become a 9K leader, and it's just problematic that one card can do all that for all these decks, right? So I personally would love to see Gecko Moria banned. I do not think it's gonna get banned, so I am looking for a playset of all to myself. But if it does get banned, I do not think that I would be shocked, and I think it's actually overdue. Inherently, Gecko Moria being banned would mess up Rob Lucci. It'd probably be not, I don't want to say dead, but it'd be a pretty bad deck. Black Yellow Luffy would have to be aggro, and it wouldn't be able to play black, because it's literally the only black card that it really plays outside of the text, like Shirahoshi, Ice Age, and all that stuff. And yeah, I think Gecko Moria is a problem card. I think that if you ban Gecko Moria, there becomes more of a cleaner format for black decks and like trying to figure out, are black decks actually good, or is it just Gecko Moria? And I think the answer is just Gecko Moria, right? So I do think that it should be banned. I don't think it's gonna get touched, but we'll see. Next on this list is gonna be Ice Age. Again, Rob Lucci player. I think that this card inherently has potential to be a problem. I don't think it's a problem right now. I think it's a problem because of the fact that Rob Lucci uses it so effectively, right? If Rob Lucci didn't use this card so effectively, it wouldn't even be a problem, right? So for 1 Don, you're able to give -5 cost. With your leader skill, you're essentially able to give -6 cost to anything on the board, right? That puts most 8 costs, every 8 costs, in the range of Lucci. And if you have a Tempest Kick, you're able to kill a 10 or less, anything on the board, for essentially 2 Dawn plus Rob Lucci, right? So that's a problem in and of itself, but I think it's only good in Rob Lucci. Like, what other deck uses Ice Age? Black Yellow Luffy? Not really, you know what I mean? So like, I think Ice Age is a really good card, but I do not think it deserves to be hit. Again, I wouldn't be surprised if it does get like at least a semi-restriction, which Bandai hasn't done so far, or a one-of restriction. I wouldn't be surprised. But I do not think that it's a problem outside of Lucci. So that's my opinion on it. Next on this list is Full Lead, and I do think that with Full Lead, you really do have to be cautious of the fact that many people are speculating that Blackbeard will be the best deck in the format if Dofi gets hit in any way. If Dofi as the leader gets hit, automatically Blackbeard becomes the contender for S tier, the best deck in the format. But the problem with Blackbeard right now is that it's countered out pretty easily by most aggro decks, right? So Full Lead becomes that consistency piece that you need in order for Blackbeard to go like turbo, like let's get to teach, and then let's like just wall up, right? If you ban Full Lead ahead of time, before Kuzan comes into the field, before you get Liberation and stuff, I think Blackbeard dies before it even becomes meta, right? So like Blackbeard in and of itself right now is like a tier 1.5 deck. If you ban Full Lead before Blackbeard gets time, I do think that Blackbeard will never see the light of day. And in it, inherently, right, stages are really tough to measure because they are no interactions outside of like Sky Tempest Kick that can actually interact with a stage. So I think that's an inherent problem with Bandai's game, that stages just have way too much value in almost any deck that has like a meta contention viability. Like think of Reiju, think of Blackbeard, think of Moby Dick and Whitebeard, right? Think of Sokka, Navy HQ, all this stuff, right? So I think that Bandai should address the stage problem versus just banning all these stages, right? And it's Lobby and Rob Lucci, right? I didn't play Rob Lucci before OP08 because I was playing Law, but I can recognize that that card was fucking busted, right? So I don't think that Full Lead gets touched yet. I think if you were to touch Full Lead, again, Blackbeard has to at least be dominant for a format, and then you think, okay, what can hurt its consistency? Because Full Lead would definitely hurt Blackbeard's consistency, almost to the point that it kind of stays in 1.5 because you get Kuzan and you get Liberation, but you lose a huge part of your engine, right? So I don't think Full Lead gets touched right now, but I could see you getting touched in 11. Next on this list, Charlotte Pudding. I think a lot of people are just mad that Charlotte Pudding does negate optimal gameplay, and I can totally see that, right? I am one of those people that think that if you are playing against a blue deck, you should be able to play around Pudding, and again, it does create suboptimal plays. I am not gonna disagree with that, but I do think that there's a little bit of a skill check with Pudding, where if you are 8-9 cards in hand and you are playing against a blue deck, you are already probably playing that game wrong because of the fact that you know that Charlotte Pudding is a thing, right? I can see you getting hit to 1. I don't think so because it does have a winner card, and I think Bandai wants to keep on pushing their own product. What is the point of hitting a winner card that is essentially in tournaments for another, I want to say like month or 2? I think it just doesn't make sense for me, right? And again, I like Charlotte Pudding because it negates Black Yellow Luffy, and to me, I don't have a problem with it. But again, I can recognize the value of Charlotte Pudding being a problem. So I don't think it gets touched, but if it gets touched, great. Cool. Moving on to the next card on this list. We're going to talk about unbans a little bit real quick because I think that people are kind of gassing this notion of unbans. I would love to see unbans. And we're going to talk about the biggest unban in the next slide, right? But Moby Dick being a card that was in Yu-Gi back in OP02 and OP03, Newgate ran supreme, right? Red ran supreme for a long time. That was before my time. I started playing in OP05, but I can see the inherent problem with having an 8K leader and having all your characters buffed up by 2,000. That's a lot of fucking value to play for 2. Like, you literally give all your characters a plus 2,000. Think about that. Plus 2,000 is essentially giving your characters 2 Dawn every turn for free. That is a broken card. I do not think this stage sees the light of day again, right? And then if you have 1 or less life, your Edward Newgate, which is your leader, becomes an inherent 8K leader. I think that is super problematic. I would love to see it actually come out and like bring chaos into the One Piece world. I don't think it's gonna happen, because if you give each of your characters 2 Dawn for free every turn, right? That is a problem. That is something so aggressive that you could possibly not counter unless you like try to just pin him down to 0. And again, if you are an 8K leader, then you have Radical Beam, then you have Guard Point, then you have all this other counter. You are not going to die. So I think Moby Dick, for the life of me, I would love to see it, but I don't think it comes back ever. ever. And then it has the trigger play this card. Like Ennis Lobby had that trigger, and anytime you saw Rob Lucci in OP07 and you hit for a first life and you saw an Ennis Lobby trigger, the game just got significantly harder because of the fact that Ennis Lobby just allowed you to get free value. Moby Dick's the same way. I do not think this card comes back. Next on this list, the king himself, the admiral, the head admiral, the fleet admiral, Sakazuki Akainu, right? I played this deck back in 05 when I first started the game, and I absolutely loved it. I did not think that I was the best player, obviously because I was just starting out. I would love to see and test my skill on how Sakazuki would do in my hands now that I feel like I've gotten better at the game. I do not think that it will, because again, if we're thinking about Banlist from the point of inherent value, the ability to trash a card from your hand and draw 1 card, calling it a cycle every turn for free, is insane. That is a ability that cannot be brought back and thought of as healthy, right? And again, I get it. You had a whole bunch of bricks in hand. You used to have Hina, you used to have Navy HQ, you used to have like all these brick Borsalinos, you used to have all these bricks in hand. But I still think that Sakazuki giving that inherent cycle will become problematic eventually, because of the fact that what other leader has an inherent like skill that just lets you cycle? Not many. I don't think any actually, right? And then -1 when attacking, -1 cost during this turn. It's literally just Rob Lucci. It's Rob Lucci on crack. And people hate Rob Lucci. So you're giving Rob Lucci a cycle and you're giving him the when attacking? Like, it's nuts. I will 100% play Sakazuki without question. If Sakazuki gets unbanned, I don't think it's gonna happen, but we'll see, right? And then lastly on this list, I'm just hating. I'm just a huge Black Yellow Luffy hater. I think Flampe needs to go. And the reason I'm gonna tell you why I think Flampe needs to go is because of the fact that in Black Yellow Luffy, it's a draw 2, and it gets you towards your game plan faster. Also in OP11, if you guys don't know, there's a new Nami leader that allows you to draw, or I think it's like you get plus 2k what is it? No, you draw a card, right? So if you or your opponent take a life, right, Nami allows you to draw if you have 7 or less cards in hand. And then I forgot what gets you to plus 2k, but Flampe is a fucking problem, guys. And if you don't have your pair or your playset of Flampe, you need to pick it up just in case. I just pulled up the SP version because it actually looks kind of cool. I probably just pick up a regular and alt if I needed to get it for Nami or whatever. But I think this card is going to become an inherent problem, and I really do think that they should address it eventually. Probably not right now. I do think that it's like me just kind of being a hater to Black Yellow Luffy, but it might be a problem down the road. So I'm just letting you guys know that's my thoughts, and that's my thoughts for the ban list. That's gonna happen on Sunday. What's today? The 13th? Sunday. Okay, so around Sunday at 4 a.m. right? That's my thoughts of what's gonna happen. I don't think that all of these cards are gonna get hit. Bandai has been pretty consistent with like having like 1 or 2, maybe 3 cards max get hit in a format. And yeah, I think that that's pretty much it. I do think that our ban list is also going to be effective immediately. The reason why I say that is because of the fact that if you think about the trend, right? OP5, they had to address Sakazuki, they had to address Great Eruption, they had to address Reject, and they let us play for a format in the West where we still had to play against Sakazuki. And I think it was poorly executed on Bandai's part. When they banned Red Purple Law and Ennis Lobby, we also had a 3-week gap, but that's because we were waiting for the new set, and that was right before Nationals, right? I think if we are going to be strategic about this, OP10 literally gets released this weekend, or not this weekend, next weekend. This weekend is pre-release, right? So if they're going to be strategic about this, I think that they should line up the release of OP10 with the ban list. That way we're just in a brand new format, everyone's good, and we're off to the races, right? If they do this 3-week situation where we wait until like EBO2 or like in the middle of April for whatever random reason, I think it will hinder the game. I think a lot of people won't be happy about it. But again, that's Bandai's trend so far. It's been about 3 weeks, and then the Sakazuki thing was about 2 months, right? So like, we'll see what Bandai does. At the end of the day, no one really knows what Bandai's gonna do because we are not Bandai employees. But that's my thoughts on the ban list video. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Also, like and subscribe as I am on the journey to 1,000 subs. And I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.